Hi, everyone. Thank you for being patient. I appreciate the flexibility. It was awesome. Okay, so we're going to go a little over 3 o'clock, if that's okay with you guys. We have kind of a long presentation, but we're going to kind of try to go through it relatively kind of quick-paced. There's basically going to be 3 parts to what we're kind of talking about today. The main thing is like the just educational experiences of children with RYR1, and then school considerations of what to do with that information, how to kind of advocate, things you need to know, the laws that you have, and then how to approach, how to work with an attorney if that is something that comes up in the future. So we're kind of,
Maybe we could find out.
honestly, since we only have that, we could
Like,
target
what's
us.
your, how old are your kids, and
Mhm.
where are you at in this process? Anybody?
Broad considerations,
So we have high
anything.
school,
Okay.
our youngest is going into high school this year, so we'll have
Okay.
2 in high school.
Okay.
And he's had a IEP or 5 he started with an IEP.
Mhm.
Once he no longer qualified for in-school services, they switched this to a 504. So he's always had something.
Okay.
And are you happy with that level of service?
We go back and forth all the time, but
Mm.
now that we have, once we got a diagnosis that they didn't understand, they pretty much give us
They
what
were like,
we
that
want.
sounds complicated.
Yeah,
Complicated.
the only thing that we still have trouble with is when the elevator's broken,
Yeah.
they just give him extra time to go up and down the stairs, and he'll admit he's done in
Yeah.
class. Like,
Yeah.
he suffers during those times, so there's nothing in place to move the classroom downstairs if there's no elevator.
And that happens probably.
Yeah, so we go to a charter school, so we're the last to get help from the district.
Yeah. Okay, going to high school, 9th grade.
Yeah.
9th grade. What about you?
I have an 11-year-old daughter. Last year at elementary school, going into middle school. So I'm kind of really nervous for her.
Middle school.
Middle
Middle
school.
school
Middle
girls.
school. Middle school. That's a big one.
Like, we're at a public charter school,
Okay.
and it's been really nice at the elementary. I used to work at the elementary school too, so it was kind of nice being there, and they, if they had questions or something, they would ask me. She's had a 504 since 2nd grade, and I just I think I'm more nervous for her to go into. I know it's a whole year, but still, I want her to kind of be prepared, and
Everybody needs to be prepared. So
Mhm.
we're gonna, let me do a little introduction.
I see, yeah.
Yeah, I was about to say, okay,
Mhm.
so my name is Dr. Hughes, and I'm a school psychologist and a licensed psychologist. And this is,
I'm Jeremy.
Dr.
Dr. Armin, excuse
No,
me, Dr.
right.
Jeremy Armin.
That's right.
Yes, I'm also a school psychologist, and I did my dissertation on the educational experiences of children with RYR1, so to kind of paint that picture of broadly classroom difficulties, IDA stuff, all that kind of piece.
and we have 2 of our attorneys with us. We're leaving Allison over there at the table. She's hanging out with us today. But this is Christine. Do you want to tell them where you work?
Yeah, I'm with the Education Law Center here in Pennsylvania. We're a statewide nonprofit, and we represent families. So I'm happy to be here.
Yep. So we're going to talk with you about the experiences of kids,
Mhm.
and we're going to talk about special education, and then we're also going to talk about what if you need an attorney to get your special education.
Mhm.
And can we ask what states you all are from?
Good question.
I'm Colorado.
Colorado. Okay. Georgia?
Georgia.
Okay, we've worked
My
with some
sister's
people
in
We've done
Georgia.
some Georgia there.
We've
We've done some
Cool.
Georgia. I can't remember, they were Atlanta.
Atlanta, yeah,
Yeah.
they were in
Okay.
Atlanta, yeah. Okay, cool. So then, just based on your kind of what you guys' needs are, I'm gonna go fairly quickly through part 1 because you guys are pretty much experts on that, and this kind of just depicts what other individuals were kind of experiencing, what the education looks like for other kids with RYR1. Part 2 is gonna be, I think, the more pressing for your guys' information, and part 3. Does that make sense? Go for it.
I just want to say something.
Yeah.
On the West Coast
Mm.
in Colorado, it is not like my daughter is like. I'm not saying she's the only one,
Mm.
but I know she's the only one like at her in our school district,
Mhm.
and it's not very like
Oh.
this foundation and stuff, you know, so I'm kind of like, I don't know, like,
Where are you at?
don't go too fast, Pat.
You got it.
Like,
You got it. You got it. You got it. You got it. Yeah.
Our school districts have like Colorado.
Where in Colorado?
I'm about an hour north of Denver,
Okay,
so
Mm.
I'm
Okay.
kind of in between Cheyenne and Denver.
gotcha. My
Mhm.
sister lives in Denver and I have family that are at the Royal Gorge. I can't remember.
And
that.
Children's Hospital is wonderful.
Yeah, it's lovely.
And they're the ones that finally told me
Figured out.
about this
awesome.
visit.
Oh,
So
that's
I'm
awesome.
kind of like, yay, I'm like soaking all of this in. 'cause I'm
I
like,
was saying, us in Pittsburgh, we get a little spoiled. Yeah, we get a little
Yeah.
spoiled because the foundation's here, so we were like, we talk about it often, but in other
Yeah.
spots,
yeah,
it's
out
never.
west, it's
Yeah,
not-
you're literally probably the
I
expert in the
never
50-mile radius.
hear, like, about the foundation
Right.
or never know.
Right.
Don't
Okay.
go too fast,
Well,
because
I'll be honest.
my school's
Stop
not
us.
gonna know.
Just stop us. We'll just collaborative process here. Call out. Don't even raise hands. Just interrupt us. It'll be great. Perfect. All right, cool. All right, so, yeah, first part. This is going to be specifically relating to the survey that we gave out, 2 years ago now? Wow, yeah, 2 years ago now. So all of basically with that survey, we wanted to look at what does the educational experiences look like for children with RWIRE 1. We wanted to answer these 5 questions through this long survey. So what are the classroom challenges? How often do students receive services in schools? That's the 504 plans, IEPs that you guys are talking about. What IDEA categories? So that's when you are identified as having a disability. There's 13 disability categories through IDEA, which I'll go into a little bit in a second. What are they identified under? And then specifically, what services through a 504 plan or an IEP? What services do these children typically receive? How satisfied are the parents with those services? Starting to look at quality. And then the last one, do parents report behavioral and emotional concerns with these kids? So we often focus a lot on the physical limitations, accommodations to adapt that, and now we're looking at kind of the secondary piece of the emotional and behavior things. What do we see in that kind of presentation? Decent sample. Really the only thing I want to note here is that it's parents. So the survey was for parents filling it out on their children. So 49 parents filling out on 51 children. Decent spread of ages, decent spread of grades, decent spread of gender, mostly white, mostly female parents. But just know that what the statistics that you're going to see are parents reporting on their children. It's really the main thing. So the first question, what classroom difficulties? That table is the list of distributions. Super easy to understand. There's a total of 51 children being reported on. You can see 29 had handwriting difficulties as reported by the parent. That's going to be the theme for all the tables. So super easy to read, super easy to understand. So handwriting and written expression came up as the main 2. That makes a lot of sense. Other thing I want to point out in this is at the very bottom, I don't know if you can see it, if it's blurry on there or not, but defiance or uncooperative behaviors, aggression, and hyperactivity were some of the least frequent. Makes a lot of sense with what we know about this presentation. And same thing with the difficulty being the handwriting. So the next piece is, are these children receiving services? Just by asking around this room, they all do. We're batting 1,000 right now. 2 types of services that you guys already mentioned, 504 plans. Those are just the accommodations. They don't change the expectation. They don't change the location. It's all educational aids to benefit the student, but they're still held to the same expectations as all the other kids in the gen ed classrooms. This is all under IDEA, which is that Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, that basically is schools are legally required to identify and provide services for children with disabilities so that they can receive an appropriate education. The next piece is an IEP, or an Individualized Education Program. So this will include accommodations as well as modifications to curriculum. And this would be higher end services, changing the expectations, changing the curriculum, changing the location, more intensive services. 13 disability categories goes on with question 3. So these are the 13 disability categories in IDEA. If your child is identified as having one of these disability categories, they receive an IEP, and they can get those individualized services, accommodations and modifications. So there's 13. Go for it. Go for it.
What's the benefit of having both a 504 and an IEP?
So you probably won't have both at the same time. So they're kind of two separate services. So the benefit really would be receiving accommodations and modifications. That's what you're talking about. Having both of those is really good because they're going to be tailored to what your student needs. But you don't need a 504 plan and an IEP. It's not like 504 plan is only accommodations and an IEP is only modifications. It's more just what that type of service is. So a 504 plan is technically a different part that is separate of receiving services. So it's not as directly correlated with special education. It's kind of a nuanced, but that's really what, in a 504 plan, it's just accommodations. So it's more mild, easier to get,
504, it's not like you would recommend an IEP as well.
unless that 504 is not working enough for that child. The child's not making progress, the child is still struggling, then that 504 plan, the services in that 504 plan aren't enough to support that child. Then you would seek an evaluation, trying to get an IEP, which would consist of more intensive services to help that child.
And individualized.
And
I just-
individual.
I just bust in front of Jeremy, sorry about that.
Please.
And since my attorney's friends are here, I'll say, and the IEP services are the ones that the school can be held to liable if they don't deliver. 504 is a little, have less teeth.
Well, I think they're both enforceable, but I think it's easier to enforce the IEP.
Right.
It's clear.
Mhm.
Everything's written down in very specific
Mhm.
language.
There's objectives, everything's tailored specifically. But it's all driven from the child's needs. That makes sense. Right. Rather than the, like, what service do I want? It's what does a child need?
Can I say something?
Where are the services?
Yeah, what I've learned is with 504, they don't have as much accountability. So an IEP is actually a little better because you're actively throughout the year modifying it, when a 504 could just shelf life for 2, 3 years. Is that right?
Well, it also kind
It's
of
not
depends on where you
supposed
I was gonna say, it's not supposed to,
But
but
does it?
that is the
Yes.
trend.
So, like, they have
Like, 'cause
laws.
there's space, you have to provide data under 504 too.
Yes.
Right? So if the child's not making progress under 504, that's a problem.
And that's where I was kind of, you
Mhm.
know, like,
Mhm.
I know it's a year, but I'm kind of like,
Mhm.
in middle school, is she gonna need that
Right.
little
Right.
more because of,
Well, that's right.
you know,
Kids are
do
growing.
I
So all kids are growing. If
start
they change-
now with the IEP so it carries, or do I wait and see you know?
The question should be, is your child succeeding now with the services that are in place, with their current programming? If the answer is yes, then you should have ish. Okay, already there, we're in gray area. Because the biggest thing should be, there should be transition planning for when you go into middle, because it's a different environment, there's different expectations. So even if it was working perfectly, when they transition, there might be more difficulties, higher expectations that the child's going to struggle with. So being proactive with that transition plan can make it not wait till you fail, and then we'll try to adjust. So you're asking the right questions. If it's already in that gray area, go ahead. Yeah, go.
So transition plan, so this is where the state of New Jersey is different. I'm learning with the IEP, at age 13, we should be talking about transitioning into adulthood,
Mhm.
because there's laws that protect our youth for getting the right accommodations to be independent on their own in society at 18 years old. So that's what I'm thinking when you're talking about
Mhm.
transition. Are you talking about transition
He's
from a
not.
different
Yeah,
grade?
different. Yeah, so that's different. That's like out. Yeah, go for it.
Let me, I'm at it.
Mhm.
Let me
Go
add
for it. Go for it.
So, what special education.
No, please. This is a good question. This is a good question. This is good. No, this is good.
And we might have a slide on this later, but let me just tell you, special education covers children with disabilities from birth to 21, period. So there's a part of the law that's called child find, and it's a district's responsibility to find and identify and find any child with a disability in their district. It's a federal law. So, districts are supposed to come and say, here's what you need, let me help you get there. And at each developmental level, you have transition, meaning when you go from preschool, or here in Pennsylvania, we like to do 0 to 3, and then we do 3 to 5, that's a transition here, and then we do school age, and then we do elementary, middle, high school. So those are like normal transitional activities. And then later, IEPs have a specific skill that says, you need a transition to life, because you're now 14, and you're about to be graduating. So it can be a transition plan could be like, I'm gonna go to college, or a transition plan can be like, I'm gonna be a plumber. Whatever it is, we prepare you for life, and that's a formal part of the IEP.
And I learned that there's legalities with that protect our children, that we can get extra support for, but the school doesn't tell you because it costs them money. So you have to really
Agree
provide for it.
completely.
Funding is a
That's a whole nother layer. It's a whole
So let
nother
me
layer.
just tell you, funding works differently in every single state. And here's the most important thing. It doesn't matter to you. They're gonna tell you, I can't, and you're gonna be like, well, that's adorable. Yes, you can.
Law.
And if you can't,
Federal
if
law.
they don't listen to you, then you meet my other friends over here, and you say, hello, friend attorney, let's make this enforceable. They can't deny it from you.
Yeah.
So,
It's law.
but are they gonna play games? Are they gonna shelve things? Are they gonna not tell you that we have to review, blah, blah, blah? Sure. People everywhere are lazy. So, that will happen,
Agreed.
but that's why you need to know what your rights are, and that's really sort of what we're talking
Yeah.
about
So
here.
if we
Is
were
what are your rights?
talking to them and my physician about switching to an IEP as a.
All you have to do for an evaluation, well, first of all, your kid already has a disability.
Right.
So this should not be a hard conversation at all. This should be the easiest conversation. But all you have to do is put in writing, I want my child evaluated for special education. Everybody, child's fine, birth to 21. So all you have to do is put that in writing. And then there's a calendar days that they have to
Abide
do
by.
testing within 45
Testing.
days, and they have 15 days to write their report, 10 days to hold a meeting, and blah, 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 blah. And that's different by state, sort of how they break it down, but there's a finite amount of time where they have to come and make a decision with you. And if you have a child with a disability, it would be not to their benefit.
Correct.
Because now our attorney friends are back, for them to say like, no, that kid doesn't need anything here. That would not. Now, are they gonna be difficult? Yes, maybe. Maybe they'll be lovely. Certainly they could be lovely.
They could be. They could be.
Yeah.
They should be. If we're gonna manage, but they could be. Yeah. So that's probably where you should like consider that. Where are the difficulties? Get that in writing, and then they can address that further. And as soon as it's in writing, right there. That's it.
Once it's in writing, then the training.
Law is there.
conversation.
Yeah, they have to do it. And this is a good time to be able to be thinking about that. Yeah. Cool.
Sorry about the little.
Oh, please, that was fantastic. That was actually good conversation, so that's beautiful. Okay. So, we know 504s, we know IEPs. Here's the categories. So question 2 was, are children with RWire 1 receiving 504s or IEPs? Question 3 is, if they are receiving an IEP, which of these categories are they actually being identified under? This is going to lead into what kind of services specifically are they getting in schools. So of all the 51 students, 87% had received a 504 or an IEP. So if we just consensus this room, we would see children with RWire 1 do receive services. They benefit from receiving school services. Those top 3 blue are the 3 IDA categories that they're identified under. You can have multiple. We saw one today that said you can't. You can have multiple. Don't let them tell you you can only have a primary. You can have multiple categories. So often, what I've seen in this is they would have orthopedic impairment as a primary, speech and language as a secondary. Totally normal, totally fine. All this is just to identify, your child is identified as having special education, or identified as qualifying for special education, and then those categories lead into what kind of services should we be applying for the help, because it's all based on the need. Cool. So, question 4 is looking at what actual specific services are we talking about. So kind of what I said before, there's like 2 main categories. There's the accommodations, which don't change any of the actual expectations. They just provide aids, extended time, preferential seating. I'm sure you all have seen those. And then modifications actually change the learning goal or objective. So these are a little bit more intensive. The actual, typically those will all be in an IEP. And those are kind of the two main categories. So now we're looking at what types of accommodations and what types of modifications do children with RYR1 typically receive based on this sample population who filled out the survey. So these are pretty typical accommodations. One thing I wanted to note just broadly, so there's 35 parents that actually, or 35 students that this is being filled out on. You can see that the frequencies are actually much more across a lot of accommodations. So the first thing that we can note is that accommodations are common for people with RYR1. They benefit from simple accommodations, mostly around navigating through the school environment. Something I want to point out here because I feel like not a lot of schools know it and not a lot of parents might know that they can actually ask for it, but extended time to eat lunch is totally allowed. But there's been a lot of pushback in our experience around lunch, but they can allow for more time for eating. 2 sets of class materials and 2 sets of books for not having to carry up and down. Don't have to carry the books from home to school. Those are things that you can ask for. Just want to point those out. They are not frequent on here, and we typically see that being a difficulty in school. But primarily, the accommodations are around navigating the school environment, accessing the school environment easier.
So let me just add for the person who has an elevator problem, this would be something like that. Bring all the books down, make sure all the books, he has 2 sets of books and whatever, both floors, whatever it is. He doesn't need to be carrying a backpack.
He has a
Correct.
rolling,
Rolling backpack.
Same.
but it's still, yes.
Same thing. He's lugging it up when the elevator's not working.
He doesn't need to be doing that.
Right. No. 100%. And these on the right here are more things you would see in an IEP. So these are the more intensive services, modifications to that curriculum. You can see physical therapy and adaptive PE are huge. I love seeing a lot of IEPs that actually do have adaptive PE. Typically, I have seen PE is usually just exempt. That is something you really do not want to do because a lot more than just physical activity happens in PE. It's a lot of social development. So really keeping them in the PE class, in the gen ed class. Individuals with RYR1 have functioning cognitive abilities, functioning social abilities, so they can still benefit from being in the gen ed classroom as much of the time of the day as they can. It's adapting the environment to fit them. So a lot of the accommodations and modifications are around navigating around the school, speech and language services, receiving physical therapy in school, these are all in school, and then support participating in physical education. Other thing I wanted to note is, and this is where we get to the 5th question around the behavioral and the emotional piece, some of the least frequent services are the psychological services and the counseling. There was a lot of parents on the survey that actually reported their child exhibited a lot of social anxiety, just broad anxiety, along with depression. Those services are provided, they can be provided to all students. So just something to consider if your child is worrying about, coping with a disability, especially if they're getting into that age where they are starting to compare themselves to others. You don't want their IEP or their services to be totally targeted around their ability to succeed in the school. The emotional and the behavioral pieces that come with that are also part of their development and should also be valued in there. There is a secondary impact of having a disability, comparing with peers, having that outlet to be able to communicate that can happen in schools.
Schools do 2 things. They do academics, everybody knows that, and socialization.
Yep.
And people don't want to do that. They're like, don't talk to me about my kid, or I don't want to hear about your feelings. Incorrect. Teachers do social, emotional learning all day long. So your kid needs it too.
100%. 100%. Okay. So now we're looking at quality of those services. The way we looked at that is through parent satisfaction. Fortunately, 80% of the parents were satisfied with the services. Of the ones who weren't, it's about 15 to 20%, they indicated everything in that blue square there as being the main reasons for why they weren't satisfied. The overall themes were something I'm sure everyone in this room has probably experienced. School does not know anything about the disease, anything about the disorder. They don't understand how it impacts the child. They are reliant completely on you to then advocate for what that child needs, and those services are. Another note on the severity of the students, the more mild the RYR1 presentation is, typically the more difficult it's been for them to advocate for it. It's very easy for a school to see a child in a wheelchair and say that they will need extended time to get between classes, all those accommodations, all those services to help their experience better. If a child just has weak proximal muscle weakness and they say, I'm tired of standing in line or writing cursive for too long is difficult. The staff can tend to see that as like a willful noncompliance, a behavioral thing, rather than a manifestation of their disorder. So that's been kind of the main advocacy communication kind of components. It's going to be really big on our next part, because it's, if you know your rights, you know the people to contact, it can aid that process much, much better. But yeah. So last part, it's a lot on this slide, but it's not as confusing as it looks. So the last one is looking at the emotional and the behavioral concerns as reported on the parent. So this is the parent's perception of their child's behavioral and emotional experiences. This is the last part of the survey. It's about 64 questions. And it basically looked at the child's externalizing behaviors. This is hyperactivity, aggression, impulsivity, internalizing behaviors, anxiety, depression, and adaptive skills. That's, can you communicate clearly, achieve everyday tasks, shift between tasks, things like that. And we can see having most of the children in this experienced a normal level of risk. All that means is that they're experiencing that behavior comparable to other kids at their age, what we expect, typical development, which is really great. So we can see that RWIRE1 related diseases do not significantly impact the externalizing, internalizing, or adaptive skills on an overall basis. One interesting piece is if you do look at the internalizing risk section, only 65% of the participants in the internalizing risk actually fell in that average normal development range. Still the majority, but there was a much bigger portion that fell having internalizing difficulties. So this kind of tells us that just having an RWIRE1 related disease is not going to lead to emotional or behavioral difficulties. Of the children who did have emotional or behavioral difficulties, it was mostly the anxiety and the depression, the internalizing pieces, rather than the externalizing pieces. Does that make sense? Okay. I rehearsed that quite a bit to make sense, so I appreciate that. All right, so overall, the most common difficulties, handwriting and written expression. Most children are receiving special education services or services in school, either through a 504 or an IEP. The types of services are usually to navigate around the school, participate in physical education, and receiving speech, language services along with physical therapy in school. Most parents are satisfied. Of the ones who aren't, it's the communication and the advocacy piece around it. And like I said before, RWIRE1 has, in this population, did not overly report behavioral or emotional difficulties. But comparative to the kids who did have difficulties, it was more internalizing than externalizing or adaptive. So this kind of leads us into that next part of like kind of what to do with this information. The biggest thing is knowing what your rights are as a parent, knowing who to contact. And I will say the school psychologist is going to be the #1 person to contact at the school or with your district. They're the professional that is trained to know how a disability, even if they're not familiar with it, they are trained to know how a disability impacts that child's ability to access education, and then what services are in place that can benefit them. So they're a really good source to be able to communicate, and just having consistent collaboration between the medical professionals, the school staff, and yourself, knowing that you as the parent are the expert. And just that consistent, clear communication. It's going to be a process. It's easier with some than others, but that has been kind of the biggest barrier to receiving the quality services in school. It's that communication, because everyone that you're going to communicate with at the school, you're going to be the expert on it, and everyone that you communicate with the medical staff, they are not going to be able to speak school language, so you're going to have to kind of navigate going back and forth with those languages, which is what our next part kind of goes into. All right, before we do that, any questions on this first part from the studies, the educational experiences? Any questions before we transition on it? Go for it.
I'm not sure if it fits in here or not.
Go for it. Yeah.
The issue with my granddaughter, she does have myopathy, but to look at her, for the most part, you would not identify her
Okay.
as a child who is
Mhm.
having any issues.
Mhm.
Her severe heat intolerance
Mhm.
is what her issue is.
Mhm.
So PE,
Mhm.
and the fact that the school that she is in is not air conditioned, which is shocking. I know.
There's more here than you'd think too, yeah, so, yeah, which is crazy, yeah.
All, interestingly enough, of course, all of the offices in the school are air conditioned.
Yikes.
The
Oh, let me
classroom.
understand, the adults are comfortable
Mm,
and the children are not comfortable? Okay.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Makes perfect sense, makes perfect sense, yeah.
Have you met her lawyer friends?
And cue the attorneys.
So my son and daughter-in-law are attempting to have an air conditioner in each classroom that she is in. It is really difficult for her, she's a bright girl and she does well, but when she is overheated and she feels it more than anyone else. And you can see, I mean, she's got nurse's office, and they've been called to pick her up because she's got a temp. She doesn't have a temp, her core temperature is actually rising. So it's not an area that anyone has approached the school district with before. So it's becoming a little bit of a difficulty. Any suggestions on handling this?
We-
Or
no.
any enlightenment whatsoever on kind of an out-of-the-box
Yeah.
504, IEP? It doesn't feel like it fits anywhere.
Well, it could probably fit
It
in
could,
both places.
yeah.
Do you mind?
Go for it, yeah, go.
So, I mean, I would say a couple things. First of all, how old is she?
8.
Okay, so she's able to notice that she's getting hot, starting,
Mhm.
okay. So being able to have a plan for her to be able to advocate, I need to cool down, I need to sit down, maybe she has ice packs, maybe she has those squishy things that go around your neck that like, I'm from Arizona, so we have like these things we put in water and we just like wear them around our necks. Evaporative cooling is like a fan with water, right? That's all evaporative cooling is. Like you got a little tiny fan and a little spray bottle of water to get her temperature down. So there's a whole bunch of things you can do in the, they have rooms with air
With
conditioning.
AC.
Maybe she needs to take breaks there and be able to come in and out. So all of that is probably technically just 504 stuff, meaning they're not doing anything, they're not changing her learning goals. But they need to be able to, she needs to be able to get up, she needs to be able to ask a question, she needs to be able to self-regulate. We've worked with schools on having water bottles in the classroom because sometimes that's an issue. There's water bottles that are cold on the outside that you can just keep as part of your cooling down. That would be something she could carry with her in the classroom. So what I always like to say to parents is, what would you do? If the kid was at home overheating, what would you do? You would say, sit down, get a drink of water, take everything you would do and say, school, this is what I need you to do.
Can I say something? I think what's more powerful is having it from the doctor.
Yeah,
The
doctor.
doctor's letter.
Well, they have, I mean, they have, this last school year, so going into 3rd grade now, they are still reviewing, when you say that they're reviewing. They submitted everything to suggest that the classroom be air conditioned so that she can function like the other students, doesn't have to be singled out. She's becoming very aware of the fact that, she's looking like, she's having a meltdown and she's extremely uncomfortable and struggles like during a test when it's so hot in the classroom. So they are approaching it from that to get an air conditioner, which just makes everybody happy.
Sure. I agree.
But it's this long review process, and moving them along, and they are now as, the end of, that August is coming,
Yeah.
and the return to school, and they keep following up, but they're still hearing that it's being reviewed.
Does she have an IEP or a 504?
I believe she has a 504.
So then I think the next step would be for the parents to call a 504 meeting or send an email to the head of the special education department and say, we want our 504 converted into an IEP. They have a timeline to respond to parents in 15, I think it's 15, ask the lawyers, is it 15 days to respond when you ask for an IEP? If you ask
I would say,
Although we help people from different states as
Mhm,
well, but, yes, you would say, I would put in writing, we want to have an IEP, blah, 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 blah,
Mhm.
blah. Let me just also say, now back to Jeremy's work, because third grade is a special year where social referencing starts. And this is where kids stop being willing to be talked in to do things. Will somebody go sit next to somebody during lunch? Will somebody go da-da-da-da? So it's a critical year. And so when you're talking with your teams, particularly the functioning team, it's great. And this is again what I was saying about natural transitions. We know everybody in a school district knows third grade is when clicks happen, all normal. So now the clicks are about to happen. How are we going to deal with that with somebody who has a difference that is noticeable or melting down or whatever it is that's happening? And so there's class-wide activities you can do around accepting differences, people learn in different ways, everybody, all of those sorts of things. But it's really important that that language is used in the classrooms that kids are in, so that there's acceptance building activities on, sometimes people need to get a drink of water. Sometimes people need to whatever. It could be hers, it could not be hers. There's a million kids in the classrooms, and they all have different needs. So being accepting of other people is important. So that's another thing you can bring into the training for the teachers, and what are you expecting, and how the classroom should work, and the kind of language you would like the adults to be using around. Check in. Do you want me to ask if you need a break, or are you ready now to tell me when you need breaks? And when kids are little, preschool kids, we take them to the bathroom and we say, go to the bathroom. We're having a scheduled break. And then they say, I don't need to. And you say, okay, we'll go in 5 minutes. But you schedule it for them. And then as they age, they say, I know when I need to go to the bathroom, and then I'll ask.
Same concept. Yep.
Same concept.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. If you have any more questions too, you can connect with us like after, because we can,
Yeah, we'll be
yeah,
done.
we got you. Okay, cool.
Is this me?
That's you.
Okay, good.
Ready? Cool.
You don't want anything, Jeremy? And I can just like bust out from the side?
I think I did plenty.
You did plenty? Okay. Okay, so we already talked about this. Look at you guys, we're ahead of time. So this is the child find. This is just the law that says that every school district must find and identify a kid with a disability. And not only do they have to find them, they have to determine if the child needs specially designed instruction to benefit from school. That's really what they're trying to do. Does this kid need something else so that they can benefit from the educational environment? It includes all schools, private schools, public schools, kids that are highly mobile, kids that are unhoused, homeless children, migrant children, children that are wards of the state. Every child has the right to go to school. Kids in the hospital have the right to go to school. We work with kids in all kinds of places. So don't feel like you're like, oh, I am in this building or that building, and I don't know if this applies. It applies to everybody. It applies to all kids.
So we're debating back here. The question.
Okay.
So we have a debate going on back here. So we go to a public charter school. And so their answer for a lot of things is, well, we can't accommodate here, you need to go to your own school. So can they say that as a public charter? Because you choose to go to that school, you apply to go to that school.
Right? I'm like,
And
look,
they say, over
she's
time,
Georgia.
with you.
She's
We're Georgia, so, I mean, I can't even get the state.
So I'll tell you the Georgia family we worked with, I guess, last year, and they're here today. I think you saw them yesterday. And that was a parochial school. That was a private Christian school, I think. And what they really needed was an explanation of what to do. They were more like, we're not going to, that's hard. And we were like, no, not hard. Let me help you. Let me walk you through. So that's what I would say is my first recommendation. I don't remember Georgia law, because that was 2 years ago we did it, but if it is public school, they have to do it. Private schools can say, we don't do that here, right? If you go to a
I
private
think that's the charter.
Go, just, wait, my attorney,
No, I don't know.
My
Georgia
attorney
laws
said
and
I had
charters.
it.
I mean, here in Pennsylvania, charter schools have to do everything for special education that
and usually if it's
traditional
public,
public schools do.
if it's a public charter, I would say they probably have to do it.
Wouldn't we have a break?
Yeah,
So it gets very hot because he's turning
And you're in
all the
Georgia?
time.
Are you in
Yes.
Georgia too?
Yes. It's so, it's like, well, then do I just say, call me, I'll come pick him up?
So,
Then he's missing days of school.
Do you have
That's
this in writing?
With
Did you ever write to them and say, the air conditioner broke down, my son has a condition that needs temperature regulation, can you please fix it soon?
Well,
That's what I would do.
yeah, but it gets, so the air is broken, there's no, but the district won't give us money to fix it, so it's an ongoing, so
That's a
now.
lie.
No,
No,
so
It's a
it's
legal
actually,
obligation, it's the
so
law.
we actually got the assistant superintendent to come to the school on a day that AC was broke for a musical, and we're passing out water bottles to everybody, and she's like, oh, we need to get you on the. front
yeah,
list."
we do need
So
to.
she was finally miserable, and so.
I think there's.
I think, but we still have no air conditioner in that
So-
school.
So, you're both right,
Yeah.
because here's what happens. People, did I already say some people are lazy and don't want to do it? I don't know myself. It's worth saying again. Here's the situation. People will slow walk, people will drag their feet, administrative slowdown. You get an attorney involved and say, my attorney and I would like to have a conversation with you regarding the temperature of my child because she has a disability and you are currently violating her right to attend education. Because sending a person home from school is a violation of their ability to benefit from the educational environment. So they can't just be sending them home. And I know what they do, because I work in schools. They say things like, he's really having a hard time today. You know, this would probably be a good thing for you to pick up. Do you think he should come home? And so they're not sending him home, because now that would make me responsible. They're like, you think that's the right thing, right? The parent decided.
They know how to bend the truth very good.
And then they go, what? They go, Mom took him home. I had no idea.
Do we have to add the EHS to his 504?
EHS.
So that's the new
ex-
term.
That
Is that an
heat
emergency?
sensitivity, rather than
You absolutely can, yeah. You can connect them.
So
If you have any health, what's the other
benefit.
health plan called?
I have my.
Individual health plan, yeah. Any of those can be connected right to the IEP, absolutely.
Yeah, mine is, I have access to fluids at all times. So if he needs a water bottle, it's like right by him at all times.
they take care of you.
Temperature regulations, monitoring throughout the whole day. If you see flush in the skin, very hot days, take his shoes off. Like, I'm mapping every single facet that could come out of it, so he's not harmed. But I have this all in writing.
And she has an attorney.
I have an attorney, because I had a lot of, I'm in New Jersey, I had a lot of problems with the school.
She has an attorney. And that's what I'm saying, is if you approach it from the beginning as, I'm sure you guys are going to do the right thing. I know you want to help my kid. Let's try that. We have a good relationship? Great. And these are the things that are non-negotiable because these are the things my kid needs to learn to be able to benefit. This is the words in the law, benefit from their educational environment. And therefore, you need to do them.
If you mention disability,
Disability, that gets, and attorneys, that gets people very like,
our children, there's laws that, so I'm shocked that they said to you, you're not gonna fix the air conditioner. Because I would have that in writing, and then I would pursue that. If you have it in writing.
oh, should we contact the school board?
Yeah.
It's not uncommon.
Oh, wait a minute, should we contact the press? Please let me go on, addition to my attorney.
Yeah, but air conditioners in the summertime, it's not uncommon that they break down. You know,
Sure.
Compressors go bad,
Sure.
fan coils, there's BMS systems involved.
It's,
A lot of
it's a
electronics.
machine,
It's
yes.
about the response time from
That's
when
right.
it goes down. They call a repair tech, come in, diagnose, maybe change some parts,
It's
like,
not,
It's not a lot of,
That's
it's not
gotta
a
be
lot of.
documented.
it's not an unknown phenomenon.
That
Things
invoice
break
break
down.
down 2 weeks
2
before they
months.
get it, 2 weeks or 3 before they get it fixed.
Yeah, that's
So
not,
it's
that's
just-
not an acceptable.
That's
That
not
can't happen
acceptable.
either in
Fans,
the building.
just fans.
I wouldn't allow that in my cases.
Some,
Yeah.
I'm tough.
It's not okay.
It's definitely not okay, and so then, so let me just say this at the end of the story. Okay, you can't get it done, you guys want to set up shop over here in the library and send all of your teachers over here to give my kid school because he needs to have schooling in this sort of location, or come to my house? Oh, wait a minute, also, compensatory education, how many days did my kid lose in school because you didn't allow him to benefit from the educational environment? How much money do I get back from you for your inability to give us what my kid needs? So the end of the story is they're gonna do it. The question is how are we gonna get this done? Are we gonna do it easy, or are we gonna do it hard? Here's what my kid needs. I know you wanna do the right thing. Let's do this together. If you're unclear about that, now I'm gonna start adding to my team and clarity and documenting and telling you what I need and saying, actually, you're gonna do it. It's required by law, and this could be a less positive interaction, which we don't. Does that make sense? Okay.
Can I add one more thing?
Yeah.
The thing that I learned is anything that affects our children without being able to access their education is against the law. So if your child is suffering because of heat in a building that they're all day in, it's against the law. Do you understand? So you can't, they pitter-patter in a sense of knowing how to negotiate you down with everything, but it's against the law. They're supposed to make the right accommodations.
That's right.
My son's going into kindergarten. I've been through the ringer with my school since he was 3 years old, and I've learned a lot here. And I'm not the type that's going to back down. That's why I feel for both of you ladies that you're saying that just over an AC unit. I've had it way worse, but come on, an AC unit is nothing. What does it cost? $100 to get a little one in the window?
We
said we would buy it.
These are rooftop units, Mandy, they're about
but still.
$20,000.
No, $3,000, but still.
40.
How much do you pay in taxes? How much, you're probably paying more than $3,000 to the school in taxes out of your income. Plus, if they have an IEP, you're getting extra, I think with an 504 too, you gotta tell me that. They get, IEPs, they get extra federal funding.
That's right. They get money, the school gets money.
Extra federal funding if they have an IEP for each child who has an IEP, so they have the funds. It's just getting them to do it when they'd rather keep the funds in their pockets than help the child. And that's what is disturbing for me.
Yeah, it is, it does get, it absolutely can get contentious, absolutely. But I will say, sorry about that, I will say,
Sorry.
we're not, no, it's, I want you to have the whole spectrum of choices, but I want you to feel empowered to ask the questions and say, I know this is the law, so how are we gonna do it, guys? We are going to get to the end where my child is going to be in a place where they can benefit from school. How are we gonna get there? Because sending them home is not a choice. Not going to school, not a choice. Let's do that together. Friendly or not friendly. Either way, he's staying. And you can't kick him out. Let me just say this, I want you to know, and this is important for you guys because Child Find applies to kids who have disabilities even when they have passing grades. And so that's why I said school does two things. They do academics and they do socialization. So if they're having challenges with socialization, with peers and all of those things, they can't say, well, he's fine in math and he's fine in this, particularly for you guys because these kids don't have cognitive impairments. They learn well. So a lot of times the experts are like, what? He's doing great. His grades are fine. It's like, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, this little girl is going to be in the 3rd grade, and I know what 3rd grade's about. You guys know what 3rd grade's about. Come on. So failing is not a requirement to it, for it to apply. So often they have, Child Find, the way that this plays out in real life, I think I'm going to go faster, is they're supposed to, in normal places, they have it a couple times a year. There's little flyers that have, they put little flyers up and say, come to the gym, and we're going to, everybody with your kid, any age, come through, and we'll go through little centers. Here, let's test your hearing, let's test your vision, let's look at this, let's look at that, let's look at this. Maybe you're somebody who needs special education, let me find you. That's how it's supposed to happen. A lot of times, child find does not happen that way, and you don't even know that you have access to services because you've never heard or you never took your kids through the gym situation. So they rotate through, they speak your language, the whole thing. That's sort of the center, the screen level. And then if your child has an issue, we do a formal evaluation. Now we're deciding 504, IEP, etc. What do we need? And by the way, if your kid doesn't need 504 or IEP, they can still have a general education plan. You can still have your health plan. You can still have anything you want, even if it's up here. Okay, delays. I'm not going to deal with Pennsylvania and their craziness. The only thing to know is that IEPs are called family service plans for preschoolers, and then they turn into an individualized education plan. So they use a little bit of different language, and this is what Jeremy was saying before, which is so important. Being able to speak the language of the group you're with is really critical, because schools don't speak medical, medical doesn't speak school. You guys know more than anybody what's happening with your kid. And so, and they use a lot of acronyms and those sorts of things. But don't back down. Okay, here's, this is actually, these guidelines are on the RYR1 website. So there's a checklist and things you can get from there. But this is very basically like, how do you talk to your doctor to help get the information from your doctors to present to the IEP team or to your school with the right information, and then how do you get the right information from your schools to be able to take it back to the doctors. So there's a checklist there. Write down your questions. Ask the school if they have questions. Is there something you want me to ask my doctor that you can take with you? Make sure that you're thinking about any kinds of limitations, certainly coming to places like this where you see different kids with different needs and thinking, will my kid need this in the future? Because kids' needs change as they grow, and so will yours. Why am I going the wrong way? Okay. This is what you can do with the school. So asking how to access medical records so you can keep track of their treatment plans, medications, all of those sorts of things. Can my school talk to your doctor? How does that, what's the interface there? Lots of schools have a liaison that will talk to physicians. Sometimes they won't have a liaison. Ask for what's the preferred method for conversation? Do you like it conversation in writing? Do you need 3 days to prepare so you can look everything up before I get it to you? Again, you can ask the physician's office, do they have a school liaison? If you guys are doing any work with children's hospitals or anything like that, they have school liaisons that go with you and talk to the schools. So you can ask for those types of services. We already said this a million times. Parents are the expert for their kid. Meet with teachers prior to the beginning of the year. Explain it to them. Don't expect they've read anything. I assure you, they have not. And if they have, they don't understand it like you do. Schedule regular communication through the school year. There's already times that are supposed to be set up that if you have an IEP, it's supposed to be reviewed quarterly, and annually they redo the whole IEP. But set it up in advance. I would like a progress monitoring every 6 weeks. I would like a note at the end of every week. I would like to hear about speech and language for these months, and now we're working on this other thing more intensely. I would like to hear about that for 3 months. Ask them how they like to have communication, talk about the frequency, and make sure that they're tracking the progress. So progress monitoring is a really big thing. Making sure they know where the child is. It's called present levels. Where the child is going on whatever skill, speech and language, writing, social interactions, pick anything. And then what are the steps in the middle? How do you get from here to there? And my kid is currently on step 1, and I want him to be on step 10. And in 4 weeks, we're going to look, and now he's on step 3. oh, we're moving along, seems like things are working. That's what you want to see. Report cards don't tell you things like that. You want to say, by skill, the thing we're working on, R sounds, tripod grip for holding your crayons and your pencil. You want very specific things, not general things like looks happy. That's not what we're looking for. We want to know specifically, and you want it tracked. Make sure that the teachers understand the limitations. Jeremy already talked about gym, but art and music can also be challenging. Art classes, sometimes people will be like, oh, just don't take your kid to art, can't hold a pencil, whatever. No, we're doing all the specials, don't be crazy. Of course we're going to music. We're doing all the things. What are you gonna do? Jeremy already talked about adaptive PE, but you have adaptive art, you have adaptive music. Everything's adaptive in the whole school. Let them know if there's changes with medication. Earlier we were talking about changes with a shake and how much calories and protein. Let them know stuff like that. He might be a little off today, seems like he's not, things aren't really working very well. We're in a growing spurt now, we can't regulate these heat changes. And who can share what information? Again, all of this is on the website, so you can just quickly get to it yourself. Okay, I just want to talk about least restrictive environment for 1 second. So least restrictive environment is a concept that is in the law that says they can't put your kids somewhere else to learn. They have to be in the least restrictive environment where they're still getting better. The only, getting better meaning moving along their goals. The only reason to be removed from other children is for your kid, not those kids, your kid to be learning better. And then there's a step-down process for how much time can they be removed from, et cetera. The reason this is important is I hear families everywhere where people will be like, we don't have that at this school, we don't do that here, we can't do X, Y, and Z, this doesn't work here. No, no, no. It all happens in your school. They can't ship him somewhere else to get something. They can't say, no, we don't do that in this building. You got 3 kids in the building or 3 kids in the district, and now he has to go to some approved private school somewhere else. They have to do the only reason for him to go somewhere else is if he needs it, not if they, oh, we don't have speech therapists here on Tuesdays. Then get speech therapists here. It's not convenient for the adults. It's not convenient for the other kids. It's what is needed for your kid. Okay. Also, sometimes kids need homebound services, you know, if they have a hospital stay or whatever, if they get an illness and they can't get over their illness, you know, they get difficulties with breathing or what have you. We already talked about school psychologists. Do they have a school psychologist? Yes, every school has one. Turns out, nobody knows that, but it is true. By law. They might say, we don't do that here. Also incorrect. Of course they do. Here's just a team to be thinking about. The thing that I want you to know about this is that there are people that are mandated by law to be at your meeting, and you are one of them. So your parents are mandated to be there. They can't be having team meetings without you and make decisions, and you show up and they say, oh, we already decided what to do. No, no, you are part of the team. You can also bring anybody you want with you. So again, you can bring your own attorney, you can bring an advocate. There are free advocates all over the country. You can bring your physician, you can bring anybody you want. It's yours. The process is yours, and it's about your kid. Teams must meet once a year at a minimum. However, you can call a team meeting at any time. So somebody earlier said today that the report was too late and we can't meet till next year. What do you mean you can't meet till next year? I'll call a meeting right now, how about? Even you can call a meeting at any time for the IEP.
There's a law too that they have a certain days to respond. Each state's different, but I know there's laws there that, like, say if you want to call an IEP meeting, they have a certain amount of days to respond to you and plan. There's a certain timeline as to when they plan the IEP meeting. It's different with every
Well, let's ask our attorney.
I'm sorry, what?
Can the parent call a 504 plan,
Like
like an IEP?
like the team, anyone could call a meeting or anything.
Yeah, you can, sure, yeah.
I didn't know if they were just
The,
for the
the
IEPs or-
requirements for, so your state, by the way, depends on, look at your state's regulations, because the state, there can be state regulations that apply to the 504 plans that require more, than is required under federal law. And another way to find out exactly what schools have to do, and, I mean, I can send out, like, I don't know how this works, but if you contact me, I can give you all the information, but there's, the Office of Civil Rights has, like, a really good Q&A, like, does a school have to do this with a 504 plan? Like, what do you have to do? The requirements are, I mean, technically, do schools even have to do a written plan, right? In Pennsylvania, they do, but, the regulations that are 504 are not as, like, strong as the regulations under IDEA, where, like, you have to do this, and you have to do it this way, and these people have to be at the meeting, right?
Which is why we were back to, this is why we were back to saying you should get an IEP.
Yeah, I'm right.
Because it's tough.
IEP.
Yeah.
The IEP is tough.
That
Yeah.
they have to legally
Oh, so
respond to,
Huh?
plan meetings, plan
Yeah.
people, those are the laws around this.
Well, I was
Did
asking
we
them
say the same
earlier.
thing?
Yeah, we did say the same thing.
Okay, yeah, but I mean, some states, like Pennsylvania, you have to have a written 504 plan, right?
Oh, you
It's,
have to.
yeah,
And I
If you
think
have an
we
IEP.
if you have a 504.
Oh, you have
So
to.
I'm saying that, like, there's certain regulations in state law that are stronger for
Each
those
state.
504 only
I see.
than
And if I wanted
that are in
to
federal
go
law.
look at Colorado, where would I just put in my Colorado's IEP 504 guidelines?
I mean, if you want to, like, as soon as we're done with this, I'm happy to look it up for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great, I was just.
We'll be around. We'll help you guys all find your answers. Let me move us through quickly. The thing I want you to know is that
No, no.
you, not only the evaluation process for special education is free, because the district has to do it. If you disagree, you can have an independent evaluation that the district pays for. So this is not, you don't need to shy away from asking questions, or this is gonna cost you money, or blah, 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 blah. This is for special education. Okay. This is what the goals must look like. I'm gonna move very quickly through this, because you can take this away and look at your own goals, but they need to be measurable, they need to be specific, like we were just talking about. They have to have related services. Related services includes speech and language, OT, PT, counseling, vocational services if they're old and are moving into life after high school. This is,
Vocational, I've never heard that.
uh-huh.
First, what does it mean, vocational?
It goes with transition services. Yep, yep. This is just a little picture that explains what Jeremy talked about, what's the difference between accommodation and specially designed instruction and differentiated instruction. I'm leaving this in here just for you. Jeremy already explained it well. I'm just for you, when you're hearing what's happening for your kids, you're going to want to say, now, who's delivering this? Is that a special ed teacher? Is that a specialist? Is that a general ed person? The aide? Does an aide count as getting special education services? No, not if they're not a special ed teacher. So this is super in the weeds, but just for you to have it, should you need it. Okay, this is what those people are. Okay, this is what has to be in the special ed protocols. I just want to point out a couple of things that are specific to RYR1 that we've dealt with before. Things like being able to rest your eyes comes up for some kids. That could be modified schedules to make sure that they have specials throughout the day, so they don't just have like academics, particularly as you move up to middle school and high school. Planned rest periods, that includes both screen time and reading. So you might say something like for every 20 minutes, so you're doing this activity, you get a 5-minute break. Protocols to rest the body. These are a bunch of different things. So Proximity is the easiest one. Don't make the kid, we were talking about using the bathroom 300 yards away. Let them use the bathroom closer. Can their classroom, be close to the cafeteria, right, the one right before lunch, locker rooms, all of those sorts of things. Make sure they have access to ramps and railings, elevators instead of stairs, chairs with modified height. All of those things the district should be buying for you. If you need different seating, that should be all about accessing their education. I think Jeremy did these 2 sets of books, more time, arrival time.
Big takeaway, I think, is just knowing that you can ask for those, and if there's any pushback, they can do it, they should do it. That's the main thing to know.
Yep, massage, we got in one for a kid that had a bunch of cramping problems, which was delivered by the nurse. And so I just want to point out because we're psychologists, we have to do this, but being able to manage stress, because I know it's stressful for you, but let me tell you, it's stressful for them, and it's stressful for them when you are stressed. So being able to manage stress and understand what you're doing, why you're doing it, making sure you're monitoring specifically those internalizing anxiety, depression, those sorts of things. And, make plans. How do you address questions? What if peers ask questions? What do you say? Why do you wear that on your legs? How come you don't wear it all the time? Why are you in a wheelchair sometimes and another time? Does your kid have a story that they know how to, and they're comfortable with? Saying, well, this is why I walk differently, and it's hard for me to balance, or what have you. Normalize it so that it's, this is just how people are. People ask me why I say y'all, and I say, well, because I'm from Texas, and so that's it. That's just normal for me. That's how it needs to be. Disability language needs to be just like that. Why does this happen? Kids are curious, very curious, and we should not pathologize their curiosity. I have a very adorable, curious story that I will tell you later if you want to hear about it. I'm moving quickly. Okay, here's adaptive PE examples are in here. Okay, this is all, we have so that's all US services that are under federal law. There are overseas and international information, just because sometimes folks are here from out of town, or out of the country. Here's the advocates that can help you, law offices. And let me just say, I brought my law office with me. Here's guidance. And so here's specific information on discipline and making sure that the kids are not being punished in any way for a behavior related to their disability.
Especially those mild presentations, because then it's more likely they're going to associate that being willful noncompliance with behavioral concern rather than the actual medical piece.
There's a definition for disability discrimination. Again, I'm noticing our time, so I'm just moving quickly, and I want you to be able to talk to Christine.
Okay. Hi. All right, so we'll do this quickly because I know we're running over, but Tammy and Jeremy wanted me to just talk a little bit about how you would speak with an attorney. If you're speaking with an attorney for the first time, how do you find an attorney? How can you work effectively with an attorney? And do I just click to?
Yeah, down arrow.
The down arrow. Oh, okay. Yeah. So I'm a nonprofit attorney here in Pennsylvania, but I was a private special education attorney for families in Washington State. So, and I know that this works differently in different states. Some places have a lot of attorneys that are available sort of pro bono or for contingency fees where they don't take money from parents up front, and then they try to get it back from the districts if they, settle or go to hearing and win. Some places really don't have that as much, and you would end up having to pay an attorney out of pocket to get pay a retainer out of pocket. So, it depends on where you are and how many attorneys are available. I can only practice in Pennsylvania, and then I'm licensed in Washington State, but if you have questions and you want to reach out, about this, how would I find an attorney in my state? I'm happy to point you to resources. I don't know if RYR1, I don't know if the foundation has a list of attorneys nationwide. They don't, okay. So, they should, yeah. Yeah, and COPA, are you familiar with COPA, anyone? That is a national organization. It's the Council of Parent and Attorney Advocates. Parents of students with disabilities all over the country. And they have a website where they list attorneys that represent students. So, and I mean families. I always tell people to make sure when you, I put it up there at the beginning because I sometimes get a lot of calls from families who say, I didn't realize this, I retained an attorney and now I didn't realize this would be so expensive, right? So really getting clarity even from that very first conversation on how much is this gonna cost? And then just being, this is what I want from this representation, right up front. I think that a lot of attorneys probably don't know much. Even in the special education space, you're going to run into attorneys who don't know much about RYR1 or anything else, any other conditions or disabilities that your child may have. So you want to provide that information right at the beginning. And I always like it when parents bring documents to me, and especially if they're organized, right? So some attorneys don't want documents at that first meeting. And I've had parents say, oh, the attorney decided not to take my case because I brought too many documents. So I think you just want to be clear about what they're looking for. And you may be working with education advocates. That's a great way to find an attorney. Or because they probably work with attorneys and experts, like any experts you're working with who will probably also have attorneys that they work with regularly. So you want to mention those. And I always tell families, don't expect a full assessment of your case at the end of that first intake meeting. So generally attorneys will have an intake meeting. Sometimes we don't charge parents at all. So, if I do a consult, it's always free. But in my old firm, we did charge for initial consults. So, but even at the end of that, I wouldn't be able, without reviewing all the records, to say, how strong I thought the case was or whether I thought it was a case for hearing. I would need time. So, so organizing documents is great. And timelines. I love when parents come in and they have a timeline. So that's so helpful. So just the same thing about the full assessment. And then I think knowing what kind of attorney. So there are attorneys who really want to do more of the negotiation, IP meetings. Let's see if we can work this out without going to hearing. And then other attorneys are really quick to say, let's just file. Let's just file for a due process. Do y'all know what due process hearings are? Okay. Let's just file for a due process hearing, and then, we'll settle it or we won't. I'm comfortable going to hearing. That I think you want to talk about and make sure you're on the same page with, because, of course, parents have different comfort levels with both of those approaches. So, do anyone have questions about finding attorneys, working with attorneys, when you might need an attorney, not need an attorney? No questions?
I'll tell you what parents usually say is, the second I get an attorney, I know the school's gonna stop being nice to me.
Oh, yeah.
And so the question is, if the school is being nice to you, are you getting what you need?
Yeah.
That kind of bribe you with well, I'm not gonna be nice to you anymore. And you're like, so my choice is I get to keep my kid in school not getting what he needs, but you're gonna be nice about it, and so am I?
Yeah, totally. I would say two things to that. One is that when people come to me and they're like, please help me as an attorney, generally that relationship has already broken down a little bit, right? So the school isn't being nice to them anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Two is, I don't do this so much in Pennsylvania just because, states are so different in the ways that they practice and the ways that schools interact with parents. But in my old state, we did a lot of behind-the-scenes representation where we would help a family. It was generally fee-based, I will say that, right? But we would help a family, and the school had no idea we were ever involved. We were, the idea was to help them almost in the way an advocate would, but with a little bit more knowledge of the law, a non-attorney advocate, but with more knowledge of the law and the ability to jump in if we did need to go to a hearing, right? So that's something that might be, depending on where you are, might be something that you could do. Then there's no, the school doesn't have to know you ever hired an attorney.